Revealed. Incredible journey of a virgin's life changed forever after unexpected doctor's mix-up. Emily Thompson had always been a bright star in her small Midwestern town. At 24, she was the embodiment of the American dream, a dedicated nursing student, a diligent worker, and above all, a loving daughter to her single mother who had sacrificed everything for her family. Emily worked 2 jobs to help support her mother and younger brother, all while maintaining a full course load. Her plans to serve her community as a nurse danced like diamonds in her mind, shining with hope and purpose. But today, everything was set to change. Excited for the routine checkup that would further her journey to becoming a nurse, she skipped into the clinic with her usual enthusiasm. Yet the air in the room felt different. A peculiar sense of foreboding washed over her. After a few tense minutes, the doctor walked in with a serious look on his face. Emily's heart raced. The next words out of his mouth would forever shatter her world. "Emily, I'm afraid you have been diagnosed with." The office blurred around her, and the doctor's voice faded into a haunting echo, replaced by the rapid thud of her heartbeat. She didn't hear the specifics, only the magnitude of the news crashing down on her. Instead of a pathway to her dreams, life just threw a massive boulder in her way. That afternoon, the whispered rumors began, a wildfire igniting in the close-knit community. Friends turned to judgment, looks became pointed. "Did you hear about Emily?" people would say, shaking their heads with feigned concern or outright disdain. Her mother, always the protector, now struggled with her own fears about how society viewed them. "Emily, I'm here for you, but what about what they think?" The worry in her mother's eyes was palpable, stirring a storm of confusion and pain within Emily. How could a diagnosis be enough to unravel the very fabric of their family? With the pressure to be perfect, Emily began to feel isolated. But deep inside, something began to stir, a fire to break free of narrow expectations and redefine her truth. She needed to show her community she was more than just a label, more than a diagnosis. Gathering courage, she sought out allies, neighbors who had their own stories buried beneath societal judgment. Together, they faced the townsfolk who painted them with broad strokes of stigma. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Emily ventured into the heart of change, she discovered more about her family, uncovering shadows from her mother's past that tied their stories together. The more she learned, the clearer it became. The existing struggles were not hers alone to bear. But just as she started to find strength in her voice, the town's collective judgment reached a fever pitch. With eyes watching closely, tensions mounted, leading to an impending confrontation that felt inevitable. Emily was on the brink of acceptance and self-discovery. But would she find the courage to stand her ground and lead the transformation she so desperately sought? Would the community embrace her journey? Or would judgment continue to choke the very essence of her identity? With the stakes higher than ever, Emily felt the walls around her tremble, ready to either break down barriers or shatter completely. Emily had never imagined she would find herself in such a lonely place. The once bright corridors of her life now seemed dimmed by shadows of judgment and whispered gossip. The weight of her community's gaze bore down on her like a heavy quilt, enveloping her in a suffocating embrace. Still, inside her, a flicker of defiance ignited a desperate need to reclaim her narrative. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, her brother Sam playing quietly in the background, oblivious to the storm raging around them. The smell of her mother's spaghetti wafted through the air. Yet Emily found it hard to swallow. She clasped her hands together tightly, focusing on the warmth and texture, using it as a grounding force. But thoughts of the town's judgment tightened the grip around her heart. Sam's voice broke her reverie. He looked up with innocent eyes, a slice of garlic bread in his hand. "Are you okay?" She forced a smile, nodding. "Yeah, just thinking. About the doctor's thing?" The way he asked it made Emily's heart ache. How could she protect him from this? Losing her dreams was one thing, but she didn't want him to carry that burden. She sighed deeply, trying to shake the fog of worry clouding her mind. It's complicated. Before Sam could ask more, their mother entered, an apron tied around her waist. Her eyes were slightly red, showing the strain of the day. Dinner's ready, just like we always have on Thursdays. The normalcy of the moment brought Emily comfort, but it was bittersweet. As they sat down, she couldn't help but think how fragile their peace felt. The sound of forks clinking against plates filled the silence, but the weight of unspoken tension loomed, hanging thick in the air. After dinner, Emily cleared the table, her mind racing. How could she tell her family the truth about her feelings, the need to fight back against the stigma she faced? She had found a small group of supporters in town, people who had been through their own struggles. Yet still, the thought of confronting the townsfolk seemed insurmountable. Over the next few days, Emily attended meetings with her newfound friends. In a cozy corner of the local community center, they shared stories that were raw, heart-wrenching, yet laced with a flicker of hope. They had walked similar paths, faced harsh judgments, and yet here they were standing together, sharing laughter and pain like a balm for their wounds. One evening, as the group gathered in their usual circle, something shifted in Emily. She shared her fears of standing alone against the town. What if they don't understand? What if it only gets worse? Emily, one of her friends, spoke with quiet confidence. Change doesn't happen overnight. You represent a new narrative for yourself and for others. There's strength in vulnerability. You don't need to mask your truth. Those words echoed in her mind, resonating in a way that felt like a thunderclap. A spark ignited within her, a call to action. She wanted to speak up, to stand firm against the tide of judgment. But could she really muster the strength to face her community? As she lay in bed that night, Emily's heart beat fast. She remembered her dreams of being a nurse, the hope she carried for her family, and suddenly, it was all intertwined with the courage to change her world. Tomorrow, she knew, marked a turning point. Would she take the first step toward redefining herself? Or would fear continue to bind her in silence? The decision loomed before her, vast as the open sky. What awaited her on the other side was unknown, but one thing was certain. Her journey had only just begun. Emily woke up the next morning, the sunlight streaming through her bedroom window, casting soft patterns on the walls. Today was the day. She could feel an electric energy coursing through her, a mixture of hope and apprehension. A deep breath steadied her racing heart as she imagined the scenes that might unfold. After a hurried breakfast, she dropped Sam off at school. His laughter echoed in her ears, reminding her of the innocence she so deeply wanted to protect. "You'll be great today, Em," he chirped, raising his tiny fist in encouragement before dashing off to join his friends. She waved goodbye, fighting back a wave of emotion. If only he knew how heavy her heart felt. At the community center later that day, Emily found herself standing outside the door, her palms slick with sweat. Voices drifted to her from within, a mix of concern and laughter. Her friends were in there, waiting for her, ready to share their stories. They had become her lifeline, each one embodying the courage she wished to claim for herself. She took another deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and inviting. Familiar faces looked up and smiled, the tension around her lessening. She could feel their strength wrapping around her like a comforting hug. As the meeting progressed, Emily listened to each story spoken with such raw honesty, every revelation making her feel less alone. But when it was her turn to speak, her throat tightened. I have something I want to say," she began, her voice shaky but firm. The room fell silent, eyes on her. "I've been hiding from the truth about myself. I'm tired of being afraid. I want to stand up, to show that I'm more than the whispers that have followed me." The words poured out, her heart beating fast as she spilled her fears and hopes into the circle. About who she wanted to be and the dreams she was fighting to reclaim, not just for herself, but for those who might feel the same way. Murmurs of support flowed from her friends, their faces reflecting solidarity and encouragement. But the moment hung heavy as she knew what came next. "I want to confront the town," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to make them see me, not the gossip, not the judgments, but me, for what I truly am." A wave of silence swept through the group. Emily's stomach churned, doubt creeping back in. What if they thought she was foolish? What if this backfired? But then, one of her friends reached out, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. You have to follow your heart, Emily. Your truth is powerful. That night, Emily tossed and turned in bed, the weight of her decision wrapping around her like a heavy blanket. The community gathering was only days away. Could she really stand before everyone, her neighbors, her friends, even her naysayers, and lay bare her truth? The image of the town's judgment loomed large, but so did the possibility of liberation. As she drifted into restless sleep, a thought ignited within her. What if standing up not only changed her life but also resonated with others? Her message could be a beacon for those feeling trapped too. When Friday came, she dressed carefully, wearing her favorite blue top, a reminder of the vast skies waiting for her. As she walked toward the community center, each step felt like a beat of a drum, pumping courage into her veins. The churning nervousness in her stomach was overshadowed by a new sense of determination. Once at the entrance, she paused, heart pounding. Did she really want to do this? But before she could second-guess herself, the doors opened and she stepped forward. Here goes everything, she whispered to herself, ready to face the storm. Little did she know, the truth she would unveil that day would not only challenge her community, but also shake the very foundation of her past, revealing secrets that she had buried deep within. The room buzzed with chatter, the sunlight filtering in through the windows, illuminating the nervous energy threading through the gathering. Emily stood at the back, heart racing, surrounded by familiar faces but feeling utterly exposed. The warmth of her friends and the kindness in their eyes couldn't chase away the creeping doubt that threatened to smother her. She took one last deep breath and edged her way to the front. As she stood there, her throat dry, she glanced around at the crowd slowly filling the hall. They were a mix of neighbors, acquaintances, and friends, each one a potential supporter or skeptic. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on Sam's smiling face. He didn't understand the gravity of the moment, but she couldn't help but feel his encouragement wrap around her like a shield. Good evening, everyone. The community leader's voice broke through her thoughts, pulling everyone's attention. Emily's heart raced. This was it. The moment she'd been building up to. Tonight, we come together to share and support one another. We're here to listen, to understand, and to learn. As the first speaker took the floor, Emily felt the weight of her heart. Each story shared was a reminder of the courage that stood alongside vulnerability. She nodded along, clinging to each testimony, feeling a bond grow between them all. But as the stories evolved, her nerves twisted tighter. When her name was called, the room fell to silence. Emily approached the microphone, her knees gelling like jelly. With a shaky hand, she gripped the stand to hold her balance. My name is Emily and I have something to share that I've kept hidden for too long. The crowd shifted in their seats, eager yet uncertain. I've spent so many years worrying about what others think of me. The whispers, the judgments. Sometimes it felt easier to hide. But today, I'm here to break that silence. To say that I am more than what's been told about me. I'm here to reclaim my story. She felt the tide of emotions swell in the room. A mother in the front row wiped away a tear, while others leaned in closer, drawn to her words. Emily swallowed hard, feeling the power of honesty spilling from her heart. I've been afraid of being truly seen, but I won't let that fear control me any longer. I'm ready to share who I am. I want you all to know the truth. A breath hung in the air, heavy and charged with expectation. I've faced battles you may never have known about, challenges that have shaped my life. And I want to talk about those today. It's not just my journey, it's about all of us who grapple with our truths in silence. A murmur rippled through the crowd, and Emily glanced at Sam. His wide eyes were fixed on her, confusion and admiration dancing on his face. Today, I'm here not just to share my story but to encourage anyone else fighting to be seen. She continued, her voice gaining strength. You are not alone. We can no longer hide in the shadows. She paused, allowing her last words to hang heavy in the air. Could this really be the moment that changed everything? Silence washed over the gathering as the weight of her honesty settled in. Emily felt the energy shift, a palpable wave of support. But before she could bask in the moment, she noticed someone at the back. A figure she recognized but hadn't spoken to in ages. The very person whose words had once cut her down. Her heart stuttered. What if they spoke? What if they exposed the very secrets she had now laid bare? Could she really stand strong in her truth, even with the shadows of her past looming? Emily inhaled deeply, grounding herself in the warmth of the crowd's support. It was now or never. Her truth had been unleashed, but the hardest part was still ahead. How would the town react? What deeper secrets had she unknowingly exposed? Emily's heart drummed in her chest as she caught sight of the familiar figure at the back of the hall. The memories flooded in a rush of hurtful words and moments that had stained her past. Her voice trembled as she continued. There are those who might not understand, but I hope they will listen. The crowd absorbed her. A sea of emotions mixed with her own. She felt the layers of every confession surround her. Each glance and whisper wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, shielding her from the ghosts of what had once been. Yet all it took was one look at that person, a shadow from her past, to send her spiraling. What if they decide to disrupt this moment? She thought to herself, biting down on her lip. It felt as if the air itself had thickened, every breath an effort. Emily pressed on, holding the microphone tighter. I believe that vulnerability is strength. I have faced what felt like unbearable truths, and I'm still here. I stand before you not just as Emily, but as a survivor of so many battles. She could feel heat radiating from the audience, a mix of empathy and curiosity. Some faces leaned in, intrigued, while others held a stillness that felt almost reverent. Would you still see me, flaws and all? She pondered in the quiet storm of her mind. At that moment, a voice broke through the reverie, the familiar tone drifting from the shadows. But what about the lies you've told? The words cut through the silence like a knife, sending a ripple through the crowd. Emily froze, every nerve in her body igniting with a mix of anger and fear. The voice belonged to Sarah, the same person who had once relished in her insecurities, turning her lowest moments public. No, Emily wanted to shout, but her voice hitched in her throat. Would this derail everything she'd tried to build? Would others fall prey to those familiar taunts? Emily steeled her heart, her passion igniting deeper. We've all got stories that paint us in different lights, she managed, forcing her voice to stay steady. My stories have shaped who I am. Instead of tearing each other down, let us lift one another up. Sarah's lips pursed, and Emily recognized that look, familiar contempt masquerading as concern. It stung. But this time the sting was laced with determination. No one would silence her again. Maybe I have hidden things, Emily pressed on, looking around at those gathered. But today, I am here to embrace all parts of myself. And if that makes me flawed, so be it. The crowd shifted, murmurs of support began to echo. She felt the ripples of strength firming her resolve. Day by day, she had taught herself to own her truth, and now with every heart that resonated with her, she felt the hold of fear begin to slacken. As she stepped back, her breathing steadied, eyes widening in the glow of newfound resolve and purpose. But just as she thought it might end, Sarah stepped forward. Do you really think you can change things, Emily? You're playing with fire, she challenged, the pointed edge of her words sharpening in the air. Emily could feel the tension crackling. A challenge laid bare before her. The implication was daunting. What if Sarah was right? Were they really ready for what could unfold from this moment? She locked eyes with Sam, who now stood at the front, his face a mix of admiration and worry. Will you stand with me? She asked him silently, needing his strength. In that charged moment, a part of Emily wondered, could she truly reshape the narrative not just for herself, but for others? Was there more to uncover, more battles to face, and healing yet to be discovered? As the room waited in tentative silence, filled with charged uncertainty, Emily couldn't help but wonder what would come next. The question hung heavy in the air. Would she make it through this fragile moment unscathed, or would she ignite deeper flames within the hearts of those who had once sought to silence her? Emily locked her gaze onto Sarah, her heart pounding in her chest. Every fiber of her being screamed for confrontation. But somehow, she found herself paralyzed by the weight of the moment. The tension felt as thick as the humidity on a summer day, and it clung to her, insistent and demanding. Playing with fire? She echoed, her voice calm despite the storm raging within. Maybe it's time someone took that risk. We've all been scorched by flames before. It's how we heal. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People shifted uneasily, exchanging uneasy glances, but Emily felt a flicker of hope igniting in her heart. Perhaps she could bridge the chasm Sarah had sought to deepen. What was it you hid, Emily? Sarah pressed, her tone dripping with insinuation. To everyone else, it may have sounded like a genuine question. To Emily it was a challenge, a duel of sorts. With each pulse of her heart, Emily breathed deeper. My truth doesn't scare me anymore, she declared, and the words tasted sweet as they left her lips. Maybe it scared you when I finally found my voice. The crowd buzzed with energy. Emily could see people beginning to nod, their affirmations quickly becoming a soothing balm over her nerves. They were leaning in, hanging on to her every word. A smile broke across Emily's face, hesitant yet real. I struggled with my identity, my past, and yes, there were lies. Lies I told myself. Lies I believed were safer than the truth. But choices define us, not just the mistakes we make. There you go again. Sarah tarnished the moment, but Emily noticed her voice lacked power. It trembled, revealing that Sarah was fighting too. Trying to spin your narrative. Not everyone is going to buy this charade, maybe you don't believe it. Emily replied, locking eyes with Sarah. But I'll tell you something powerful. I do. I've learned to embrace my scars. They tell stories of battles won and lessons learned. As she spoke, Emily felt a ripple of strength wash over her. The audience was reactively transforming, shifting from skepticism to support. There were hands clenching into fists, nods of understanding echoing through the hall. Even a few tear-streaked faces gazing back at her with a mixture of empathy and encouragement. Your words may poison the air, Sarah, but they won't poison my truth. The conviction in Emily's voice rose above the murmurs. Today, I choose honesty over shame. Emily's heart raced as cheer broke out amongst the audience, a wave of applause that built until it flooded the hall. She couldn't believe it. She was finally being seen. She was finally being heard. But then Sarah took a step back, her eyes glistening like ice shards. Okay, Emily. What happens after you reveal everything? Will you be able to handle the fallout? She had put it out there, the ultimate question. Emily's breath hitched, suspended in a moment of vulnerability. It wasn't just the what-ifs that haunted her. It was the stark realization that every open door invites uncertainty. Isn't that what living is about? She shot back, cooling her panic. Embracing both the beauty and chaos of who we are? But was she ready for the truth that could surface? Could she really bear the weight of all the revelations lurking just beneath her skin? The room was charged, every face reflecting the same curiosity and fear that she felt inside. Emily glanced at Sam, who offered a resolute nod, a reminder that she wasn't alone. With another deep breath, she plunged into the depths of what lay hidden within her. There was a tremor in her voice as she spoke of her struggles with identity, of betrayal, and of shattering moments that had shaped her. But I'm here, and it's time to share. We can't heal what we don't face. As she prepared to dive deeper into her story, Emily wrestled with the thought, would this unfurling lead her toward liberation or bind her with chains? The atmosphere hung heavy, waiting. The weight of expectations pressed down, yet the fire in her soul danced like a beacon within her. What if sharing her truth unleashed something powerful, not just for her, but for the others in the room who might feel the same weight, but had yet to find their voice? Are we ready? She whispered to herself, uncertain if she could take that final step toward vulnerability. Emily narrowed her focus, one thought pushing through the myriad of doubts. Maybe this was their moment to ignite change. Would she have the courage to face whatever came next? The spotlight felt like an ocean of heat pressing onto Emily's skin as she prepared for the plunge. The waiting room of souls around her buzzed with expectation and fear, navigating their own storms of revelation. She took a breath, looking out over the faces, feeling the weight of their hopes and fears. She hesitated, a cocktail of dread and longing swirling within. Would sharing the deepest part of herself really be a vessel for healing? Or would it drag her deeper into shadows she had tried to escape? Ignoring the thoughts threatening to drown her, Emily continued. Let us start from the beginning. The moment I realized who I was supposed to be. It wasn't always easy, and it sure wasn't pretty. A murmured solidarity swept through the room, an acknowledgement that echoed her own hidden struggles. Emily played with the edges of her fingers, fighting back the tide of tears trying to spill. She spoke about her childhood, a time of confusion where laughter danced side by side with the aching question of belonging. I remember sitting in my room, drowning in silence, wishing I could be someone else. Thoughts would spiral in my mind, telling me I wasn't enough. The words poured out like a waterfall, unrestrained. With every phrase, Emily felt the grip of fear loosen just a fraction. She told them of her insecurities, her longing to fit into a mold that wasn't meant for her. With gritted teeth, she confronted the memories, her heart pounding like a drum, pushing her further into the light. I've seen hate, but I've felt love too, she said, pushing through the vulnerability. Love from people who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. Her eyes flickered across the audience, catching glimpses of understanding, tears, and pain mirrored back at her. As she opened the door wider, letting vulnerability flow into the space, Emily couldn't help but notice Sarah's expression, half rage, half admiration. It was an ironic mixture, and a seed of courage sprouted where it had once withered in fear. And then, she landed on the moment, the story that had cradled her shame for so long. A year ago, something happened that shattered my world. A mix-up at the doctor's office left me reeling. I thought I understood myself, but that moment sent everything into chaos. A sharp breath escaped her lips. They called me in for tests and the miscommunication shattered everything I thought I knew. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emily pressed on, drawing strength from their reactions, their palpable empathy fortifying her voice. It was a turning point, a moment of reckoning. I found myself standing on a precipice, the weight of my past pushing me down. And now it was time for me to fly. I faced lies, heartbreak, and betrayal, but none weighed heavier than my own silence. Now the crowd was leaning and they were all ears, captured. The energy had shifted. The air felt lighter. Here among them, Emily began to embrace the fragility within her. Those fearful moments, they don't define who we are. They teach us. They remind us that we can rise from the ashes, a little more beautiful than before. She raised her voice, not just as Emily, but as a warrior for so many others who had yet to find their way. The cheers that erupted were thunderous, a sound of shared triumph and support that erupted from the depths of their collective souls. But even amidst encouragement, uncertainty loomed. What awaited her on the other side of this release? Would her truth become a rallying cry, or a reason for the shards of judgment to cut deeper? Can we really do this together? She asked, half to herself, half to everyone as the applause settled. In this moment of connection, she realized it was only the beginning. The journey ahead would unravel the stories locked within her and them. Emily's heart sang as she caught Sam's gaze again, offering an encouraging grin. The question lingered, suspended in the air. What lay ahead for her now that she was ready to embrace the chaos? As the applause began to fade, a quiet yet powerful remark slipped from Sarah's lips. You open the door, Emily, but what comes next could change everything. What awaited them all once the door swung open? Emily stood there, feeling the heat of the spotlight begin to shift. The applause had subsided, but not the energy in the room. It buzzed like static, alive with possibilities and unspoken words. She was left with a whirlwind of emotions, a mixture of exhilaration and lingering fear. Could she really step into this new reality? The sound of her heartbeat filled her ears, drowning out the murmurs of the crowd. As their faces blurred into a sea of supportive smiles, one thought stood out: she had opened a door. But what lay beyond that threshold? Let us dig deeper, she announced, her voice steadier now. I shared my struggles. But what about the lessons? Taking a bold step forward, she continued, I learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the path to freedom. Each scar we carry tells a story, and there's strength in sharing them. When I let my friends see my wounds, they became my shield. A ripple of murmurs burbled through the audience, and she could feel the pulse of connection growing stronger. She looked toward Sarah, who now wore an expression layered with curiosity. What are you feeling? Emily asked, inviting her into the conversation. Sarah hesitated, her vulnerability seemingly matched. It's terrifying to think about exposing yourself like that. But at the same time, it feels liberating? Exactly, Emily exclaimed. It's not just about me. It's about all of us. Each one of us has a story locked away, waiting for the right moment to break free. Sam nodded eagerly from the back, his encouragement illuminating the room. You're not alone in this, Emily. We all face moments that try to pin us down. But look at you. You're standing tall. Every word was like a brushstroke, painting a vivid picture of shared humanity. Emily's heart swelled as she caught the eyes of others, people who had walked similar paths. They saw the darkness, felt the weight, and yet were here, searching for light. As she looked out, she noticed a younger guy in the front row, tears glistening in his eyes. What if we can't rise from the ashes? He whispered, his vulnerability stark. The silence felt heavy, and Emily felt the urge to reach out, to connect. What if you could? It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Each day we wake is a chance to recast our stories. We do this together. The room shifted again, the weight of her words settling in. There was strength in the shared struggle, a hint of something greater, a flicker of renewed hope. Tonight is just a glimpse, she said, her voice strong. We're starting a journey. Together, we'll explore the fears that bind us and the truths that will set us free. An electric charge rippled through the crowd. She could feel the energy build, ready to explode into action. But as excitement sparked, something else flickered in Emily's gut, a seed of doubt. Would it really be possible to heal and ignite change? Could hope resonate past this moment? Are you all with me on this? She cried out, raising her arms, urging them to join her. The room erupted with joyous affirmations, voices blending together, hands raising high. But amid the cheers, Emily's heart raced. This was more than just a shared moment. It was a call to arms. What would they uncover together? And as the room rang with applause once more, a familiar face stepped into the light. David, the boy from her past, his eyes reflecting both pride and skepticism. He opened his mouth to speak, and Emily felt her heart skip. What was he about to say? What would his presence mean for her new journey? The crowd quieted, and all eyes turned toward David. What would his words reveal? David stood there, the spotlight catching the sharp lines of his face, illuminating the uncertainty that danced in his eyes. Emily could feel the crowd's anticipation, buzzing like static. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped, and all that existed was the weight of his gaze on her. Emily, he started, his voice steady but soft, I'm proud of you. The words hung in the air, a mix of compliment and challenge. But I can't help wondering, is this really who you are now? Or just a phase? Gasps echoed around the room, and some heads shook in shock. Emily felt her chest tighten. He was right there, at her heart, tearing at the threads she'd just woven together into a tapestry of hope. I'm not a phase, David, she shot back, her voice rising with a mixture of passion and fear. This is me, raw and unfiltered. I found my voice and I'm using it. She could see the skepticism in his expression, a challenge that matched the shadows he carried from their past. What if this all falls apart? What if you're just being brave for the moment? David pressed, his gaze intense. The audience shifted, the energy in the room hovering between encouragement and doubt. The tears glistening in the eyes of that young man in the front row returned to Emily's mind. She took a deep breath, searching for the words that felt true. Because falling apart is part of being human, David. I'm here to embrace that. And if I stumble, I'll rise again. Together we will rise. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and she saw a flicker of change in David's eyes. Maybe he was absorbing the essence of what she stood for. He continued, I just don't want you to get hurt. Opening yourself up like this, it makes you vulnerable. We've both been hurt before. Emily nodded, the knot in her stomach easing ever so slightly. I know that, but isn't that the point? No one gets through life without scars. We choose to grow from them. There was a pause, the crowd hanging on her every word. She glimpsed Sarah's face, filled with understanding, and even Sam, who nodded in silent support. Suddenly, Emily took another bold step, moving through the crowd until she stood directly before David. I'm not here to prove anything to you or anyone else. I'm here to share my truth. And I'd love for you to join me on this journey. David's expression softened, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through the barrier he held. You really believe that? Every word. The warmth in her voice felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. And more importantly, I believe we can navigate these fears together. The crowd erupted into applause once again, the sounds rising like a tide. But Emily's own heartbeat echoed louder. A mix of exhilaration and trepidation. What if David's doubts meant her journey was far from over? What if he represented the very fears she sought to conquer? As the noise subsided, David stepped back slightly, as if processing her words, while uncertainty remained etched on his face. "Let me think about it," he said, uncertainty lingering in his voice. Emily's heart sank slightly, the challenge still echoing in her mind. But just as she turned back to the audience, she caught a glimpse of something. Hope flickered in David's eyes. The lightning of connection pulsed through the room again, foreshadowing the possibility of a shared journey. What did this mean for her mission? Could David's skepticism transform into support? In the back of her mind lingered the question, was she equipped to guide others through their darkest moments? And as she prepared to direct the conversation forward, a young woman's voice called out from the crowd, "What if we fail?" All eyes turned, and Emily felt the essence of the moment shift yet again. What was the next chapter in this journey? Emily stood at the precipice of her transformation, surrounded by faces reflecting a mix of fear and hope. The question reverberated around the room, sending a ripple of uncertainty coursing through the crowd. The worry etched on her friends' faces was palpable, but deep down she understood their feelings. This was new territory for all of them. "What if we fail?" echoed in her mind, haunting yet resonant. But standing in that moment, a spark ignited within her. Failure was part of any journey. It was the fear of silence that had held her back for so long. "Failing is just a part of the process," Emily responded, her voice steady and confident. "It's the lessons we learn from it that matter. We can't let fear dictate our choices. Every stumble is a step closer to growth." The crowd drew in a collective breath, and Emily could feel the energy shifting, like a breeze blowing through a still room. Their faces softened, the tension slowly easing. She continued, "Every one of us has fought personal battles. What we're doing here isn't just about me. It's about us. It's about embracing our imperfections together." She could see the fire kindling in their eyes, mirroring the fire ignited inside her. This wasn't merely her moment. It was a collective journey toward liberation and understanding, a chance for their community to come together, to carry each other's burdens, and to celebrate their triumphs. A woman in the back stood up, tears glistening in her eyes. "I've been afraid to share my truth too. I felt like no one would understand." Emily beamed, welcoming the connection. "You're not alone. Share it with us. Your story is powerful. We can lift each other up." The room began to stir, and whispers and murmurs grew into affirmations. Individuals took turns stepping forward, sharing pieces of their own battles, stories of loss, fear, and still, an unwavering hope. With every shared truth, the walls that had once separated them crumbled. As the atmosphere transformed, Emily's heart swelled with pride. They were becoming a woven tapestry of resilience, united by the raw beauty of their shared humanity. Each voice added strength to the chorus of affirmation. In the middle of it all, she caught sight of Sam, wide-eyed and vibrant with excitement. He was watching her with unwavering admiration, a reflection of courage that pushed her further, igniting the flame inside. As the last voice in the room faded, a silence fell that filled with possibility. Emily's heart raced as she thought about what was next. "We cannot stop here, my friends. We have planted a seed tonight, but we must nurture it. We will continue meeting, sharing, and growing together." The crowd erupted into applause, an outpouring of love and support that sent shivers down her spine. The energy in the room danced with warmth, igniting more than just conversations. It was a movement. David's face softened as he played with a small smile. "You really believe this matters, don't you?" "I believe we can change our community, David," she replied, her heart steady. "It starts with being visible. Every voice adds another layer to our collective strength." The ripple of energy coursed through the crowd, a vibrant pulse of possibility and connection. Comments flew back and forth, ideas for future gatherings, for outreach programs, for breaking down the stigma once and for all. "Can we start a support group?" someone shouted, raising their hand enthusiastically. "Let us organize town meetings to foster understanding," another suggested. Emily couldn't help but laugh, her heart soaring. This was what she had envisioned, the gathering of souls shedding their fears and exposing their truths together. As the energy swelled and excitement merged with newfound purpose, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. The journey wouldn't be easy, setbacks would come. But they were not alone anymore. Faces in the crowd became allies, friends, sisters, and brothers in this shared experience. In that moment, Emily saw a future shimmering on the horizon, a vision of a community woven not by judgment, but by empathy and understanding. She could already imagine making an impact, lighting the way for others to follow. With that thought firmly planted in her heart, she swiveled back to address the crowd one last time, her voice booming with passion. Let us rise together. Let us build a community that embraces our truths and celebrates every part of us. This is just the beginning. As the applause crashed like waves around her, Emily felt a profound sense of belonging wash over her, a feeling that all the struggles, all the vulnerabilities had led her to this very moment. They were standing together, defying expectations, fear, and stigma. And when the gathering wrapped up, as people exchanged hugs and smiles, she leaned into the warmth of her brother's embrace, a radiant smile escaping her lips. "Did you see that, Sam?" she whispered, his innocence glowing in her eyes. "We are going to change everything." As they walked out into the evening air, the stars twinkled like diamonds overhead, and Emily felt a surge of hope spiraling within her. This wasn't just her journey. This was a collective journey toward transformation, and they were only just beginning. Now let us make this movement powerful by sharing our stories far and wide. You need to subscribe to the channel immediately to not miss the next exclusive stories that could change lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for the community we're building together. Comment below and share your reactions and feelings about Emily's inspiring journey. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and feel the magic of connection.